everybody, and welcome back to Blue Jays Today, where today, guys, we got some big news. This also came out a couple days ago, but Bichette, he's injured, and his season is over, along with some other Blue Jays. So we got to take a moment and reflect upon the season of Bichette, and maybe even the potential future of Bichette, and is he going to come back to the Jays? Is this the last time we've ever seen him in a Blue Jays uniform? We'll discuss all that and more. And as well, guys, we got to talk about the upcoming series against those Tampa Bay Rays, because there's only 9 games left of Blue Jays baseball. Can you believe it? Holy crap. So we're going to dive into that and give our picks, and as well, some other type of Blue Jays news. So I'm your host, Adam Peddle.
And I'm your host, Nicholas Blaylock, and we are absolutely in the final stretch of MLB baseball. Let me just say, thank God.
Yeah,
man.
I'm done with it, guys.
Shout outs for all of us for making it this far, everybody. You deserve a pat on the back. You deserve, a cheat day, or a day to really just go and reset yourself.
Fan appreciation this upcoming week. You go and get yourself appreciated at the Rogers Center.
No kidding,
That's right.
man. No kidding.
No ad.
Let's face it, everybody. This has been a brutal one for all of us, right? Like, nothing has gone right for the Toronto Blue Jays, and now that we are at the end of all things, I think we all deserve a little bit of appreciation for even just making it to this point. So we appreciate you guys. I hope that you also appreciate what we're doing here, bringing you this latest Toronto Blue Jays news. Let's start off with Bichette, guys. He is done for the year. This is somebody who is, I think, a lot like us, just really happy that it's all said and done, man.
Well, I think the word was he wasn't happy, obviously. He's injured. He had to go through all the injuries before this, the calf injury, and all he wanted to do was play baseball. So,
sure.
Maybe he's happy that he's getting away from the season, but I think he's not happy that he didn't finish the way he wanted to.
No, of course not, okay? Yeah, I mean, like, if Bichette had it his way, he would have come back and in the 9 games that he was playing, like, hit, 50 home runs every single at-bat type thing, and it would have been great. But that's not what happened, guys. He broke his finger, took a pitch off of him in practice.
Ground ball. He was fielding ground balls,
right.
Broke his finger. Just the most ridiculous way to also end it after coming back for 1 game.
Yeah, it was actually just like the worst season ever, really, from Bichette. Like, everything that could go wrong went wrong. We got the numbers here. I mean, at this point, you guys already know them, but he's going to finish with a negative .2 WAR. The OPS is going to be below 600. That is over 200 points lower than whatever his next lowest season's been, because he's always been in the 800s, right? Like, this is by far a dramatic fall-off season from Bichette in every statistical category that you can think of. And then on top of all of that, you had the drama that was going on pretty much all season long about him and the management. We're still not entirely sure exactly where they are at. And then, of course, the injuries as well. So before we even just talk about what does his future look like and everything like that, I think it's safe to say that Bichette is going to bounce back, because it's almost it's tough to do worse. But in what capacity would you be expecting Bichette to bounce back after a season like this?
I mean, whenever you have a floor like this, really, the ceiling and the floor, I mean, this is the floor, and we've seen a ceiling, so it could be anywhere in between. But I've said it time and time again, more likely than not, Bichette's going to be the kind of player that's going to bounce back to his form. And he actually already started to make an adjustment. I mean, there was word that he dropped his leg kick entirely in the 1 game. Now, granted, a lot of people were saying that this could be just him easing himself into the games because of no leg kick, aka meaning more contact with the baseball. And he did go 2 for 5, had a 400 batting average, so you had a little bit more contact in his first game. But maybe that was an adjustment from him to say, hey, what I was doing before isn't working. I need to make more better, consistent contact with the baseball. We heard from him talking to his dad, that he reflected on that and said, maybe I need to go listen to my dad a little bit more and less about myself. He even made a comment talking about how he kind of admitted he got a little bit over his head thinking, I know everything, I know more than my parents. Then he got a reality check. We had this horrible season, went back to his dad, and kind of had that old homeschool teaching. So for me, I think Bichette's going to do the right thing. Whether he's with the Blue Jays or not, I think he's going to go back to what got him here and what made him successful in the first place. You got to make an adjustment at some point in your career. Clearly this season, he needs to make an adjustment, whether it's dropping a leg kick or something else. I think he's going to be doing it. And with that being said, I think Bo Bichette's going to be just fine.
Yeah. I mean, assuming that health isn't a problem for him, right? Because obviously that's impossible to predict. And this is really the first time that he's ever dealt with significant injury. So hopefully this is not a reoccurring or ongoing thing that he deals with. But I think when you're just dealing with a sample size as deep as what Bo Bichette has had, it's just really hard to believe that somebody who was that good for that long, consistently up there in hits, consistently like just giving pitchers fits like time and time again, to then fall to the level where he's at right now, like I do find that hard to believe. I think his biggest obstacle for him is going to be a bit of a internal one, because when you do have a season like this, and when you do have a lot of the negative press that has gone on surrounding you and surrounding your future, that can really weigh on a guy, and this is going to test not only his capabilities to, come back physically healthy, but also to stay confident in his own game and to make sure that he's not going down some deep, dark rabbit holes thinking all off season about my 500 OPS, because that's not where you need to be, right? I do have faith in Bo Bichette moving forward. However, all of that being said, I'm not as confident that he's even going to be in the Toronto Blue Jays next year. I think if I had to bet on it, I would be, but there's now more question marks than ever that he could be going elsewhere. We've seen a couple articles start to pop up, just suggesting and speculating that this could be the last that we've ever seen Bo Bichette in a Toronto Blue Jays uniform, which would just be, let me just say right now, and you can give your 2 cents on this, but that would be really, really disappointing to see if that's the way that Bo Bichette goes out. Yeah,
I'll be honest, guys. I don't think that this is the last game Bo Bichette's had with the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm gonna put my flag in the ground. I'm gonna be on the top of this hill. Bo Bichette's gonna be a Toronto Blue Jay in 2025 for the reasons that they're literally saying in this article. Give it a good read from Fansided. It's someone's opinion piece on that this could be the end of Bo Bichette in a Toronto Blue Jays uniform. But look, he has his lowest value ever. You're coming off one of the worst seasons ever. You have 1 year left in your contract. And you're on a team that desperately needs you. For one more season, Ross Atkins trading you away and bringing up other guys, it just doesn't feel necessarily right. I think the Blue Jays really need the elite production of Bo Bichette's bat in that lineup to have a good season next year, and that's what they want. They want to test it out one more time, and there's no sense trading away a guy at his lowest value with 1 year left on his deal. That's going to get nothing in return. You're going to get another. I'm not shitting on Will Wagner, because I actually liked his debut, but a Will Wagner type, an 18th ranked prospect that's like, okay, this is just a filler guy, based on what his value is. So there's no reason for him to be getting traded this offseason, in my opinion. Yeah, I think that, large in part, most of the signs that we're seeing would suggest that it just does make more sense to hold on to him. Obviously, we're not deep inside some of these other GMs' brains. Like, if somebody is willing to pay through the roof for a Bo Bichette, or kind of overlook some of these injuries and this underperformance and pay for him at least what would be close to what we think his value should be, then that's a different story. And on top of all of that, I know that he came out and I know that he had that whole spiel about wanting to be with Vladdy and wanting to be here long term and blah, blah, blah. Is that press speak? Is the relationship still good? If the relationship is completely fractured, then that right there could be, that could be the end. And we don't know that for certain because we're not on the inside. We don't hear the ongoing conversations in Ross Atkins' office between the two of them. But assuming that we can patch that over and it is repairable and he's healthy and he's feeling good and these other GMs aren't willing to ship away a top 5 prospect for him, I would tend to agree with you that I think he is at least going to start the season with Toronto. I think that there is a decent likelihood that come trade deadline next year, assuming that we're not in a deep postseason race, then that might be the time to do it. But again, a lot of bridges to cross before then. Yeah, to jump off your comment, also Sophie saying in the chat the exact same thing. If we don't do well, he's going to get traded. I am on that train because, if Bo Bichette is bouncing back and being good, I actually don't see him being with the team beyond 2025. Yeah, regardless of what he says, because that's the thing, right? Like, if he is actually, let's say that he's actively playing very well, right? He's playing very well. He's back to that 800 plus OPS. The batting average is over 300. He is up there in hits again. I do certainly think that this season has lowered whatever his extension value is going to look like. Right. But, if he's all the way back and looking good, it's not going to lower it that much. You're still looking at somebody that will probably get
over $100 million, assuming the defense isn't completely horrendous last year, because that's always going to be an issue with Bo Bichette. But when you're looking at that, and if you're thinking about a guy that's going to get paid over $100 million, if they do extend Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in this offseason, like I think we all hope that they will, it starts to become a financial thing where we don't know if it's going to happen.
Yeah, even though Bo Bichette says he wants to play with the team, well, the team may not be able to afford that reality.
Exactly.
You know, so Bo Bichette, regardless, I do think next year is his last year. It could be the final dance. We might have to start that narrative, actually.
Well,
that might be a thing.
Well, Bo Bichette, Michael Jordan, maybe a little different, but
it's our final dance. It's the Blue Jays' final dance, guys.
Could definitely be, but that's where we're at right now with Bo Bichette. We do wish him the absolute best in his recovery, and hoping that he can have one hell of an offseason. I want to move on and talk about Dalton Varsho, but before we do, actually, I saw some people in the chat talking about it. I feel like we'd be just remiss not to just bring up what literally, this might be the greatest game of baseball I think I've ever seen. I mean, obviously, there's no hitters and there's perfect games and shit, but like, in terms of a hitter game,
17 total bases. 17 total bases.
10 RBIs.
10 RBIs.
That's fucking crazy, man.
Yeah.
That's,
Shohei Ohtani.
You know what's nuts, dude? Speaking about Bo Bichette, so Shohei Ohtani goes 6-for-6 yesterday.
Right.
6-for-6. He gets a single, 2 doubles, 3 home runs, 2 stolen bases, 10 RBIs. I think he scored 4 runs.
You're comparing him to what Bo's done all year long.
I know for a fact that Bo Bichette has 4 home runs on the year. So Shohei Ohtani in one game effectively, like, almost matched Bo Bichette's season-long numbers.
Well, a third of his RBIs in one game. Stolen bases, basically 2/5, exactly 2/5 of his stolen bases.
It's just,
or was it? No, he got 2 in the game.
He got 2 yesterday.
Yeah, Shohei Ohtani's a beast, but someone in the chat was also like, read the room.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, obviously some people are sensitive to that Shohei Ohtani stuff. I'm over it, guys.
I'm over it.
I'm just admiring it
Yeah,
now.
exactly. Like, at this point, it's ancient history, and I mean, it's actually mind-blowing, man. Like, I really do hope that this guy at some point will win a World Series, because I think that's the only thing that's missing from his resume from being considered the greatest player of all time. Like, that right there, whenever you walk into the game, everybody's like, oh, is he going to get 50-50? I don't know. You know, he's like multiple home runs behind, a stolen base behind, leaves the game 51-51.
That's insane,
6 for 6. Like, it's fucking insane.
We literally talked about on our Bad for Baseball podcast, and that was going to be a clip that we're going to throw out there, but it's like, well, it's dead now.
Dead now.
It's just so fast.
Like, he was literally like, you know what? Let's just get it over with.
Yeah.
And just and again, like, you're talking about a guy that, like, wills your team to victory. Like, 10 RBIs.
Yeah.
You could throw the Blue Jays bullpen out there for 9 innings, and Shohei Ohtani still wins you that fucking baseball game with 10 RBIs.
Yeah.
Like, again, I just had to throw that out there, because that's something going on in baseball that is, like, just transcendent.
For sure. I wish we had him. Would that make us a playoff team? I actually don't think so.
It certainly
maybe 500.
It definitely helped.
Maybe we'd be 500. Ohtani can't pitch in the bullpen at least this year.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Let's talk about some other guys who have had season-ending injuries. One of which is Dalton Varsho. Big contentious guy, but honestly, I feel like at this point, being almost 2 years removed from the trade, it's kind of one of those things where you've already accepted it. If you haven't already, please try to accept it, guys, because there's no going back in the past. This is our man. You know, this is his season-long numbers. We're expecting that chopping wood strategy that we heard back in spring training to really change his season and make him a much better hitter. Technically, OPS plus, he was a better hitter. OPS, better hitter. Batting average, not so much, but he had a little bit more of the slug, a little bit more of the base, and obviously overall the WAR was phenomenal. A 4.9 WAR for a guy who could be a Platinum Glover this year. Thoughts on Dalton Varsho, 2024 season?
Like, it really sucks about the injury, because this is actually something that is going to linger all off season, right? And there was, he's hoping, right? Like, this is what they came out and said, right? It's like, he's hoping that he'll be good to go. for like when spring training rolls around.
Right.
And like that's the type of shit that you don't want to hear because, well, what does that mean? It means that pretty much the entirety of the off season, when ideally I'd love it for you to be, working in the batting cages and everything like that. That's not going to be the case. You're going to be rehabbing your shoulder, which you obviously need to do, right? You got to be healthy. You got to be good to go. Health is number one, and you're not going to go anywhere if you're not fully healthy. But this injury, it's not like the little thing with Bichette with his finger, like he fractured his finger,
that's
but
gonna be fine.
you wear a little thing in your finger for a couple weeks and you're good to go type thing. Like this is something that's going to be an entire off season of work for Dalton Varsho, which is really tough to hear for him. In terms of the year as a whole, obviously, I mean, it goes without saying the defense is impeccable. It's like every other game, this guy is making a highlight level play that could easily be on the top 100 plays of MLB type thing of 2024 season. Like that's what he does day in and day out.
And it's almost like he does the routine stuff. He makes actually what normal players would do highlight reels on look easy.
100%.
And that's for me, like even the more impressive thing.
Exactly, and that is why he is right up there. I actually haven't looked at this thing, but I'd imagine 99th percentile in outs above average because of that's what he does, right? Like the outs that should be base hits, that's what he's getting those, and many of the other guys around the league just can't do that. So defensively speaking, phenomenal. Offensively, I still think that there's a lot to be desired. I know that the OPS plus there says 99, but I also know that I've watched Dalton Varsho, and I know that this guy is pretty incapable of coming up clutch. I look at that on base being below 300, and that's not what we need, man. It's just not what we need. So, I know you started this whole thing off about, you got to accept the trade and whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, you can accept it. But it doesn't mean that you need to be happy about it. I'm still not pleased that this is what transpired here with Dalton Varsho, and I really do hope that this can be something that improves moving forward.
Oh shit! I wasn't trying to show you up or anything, but I just saw here high leverage. Dalton Varsho is actually really good in high leverage situations.
What classifies as a high leverage situation?
So tying runs on base, runners in scoring position, like that kind of situation, and he's Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Wow.
when he's in high leverage situations.
Well, I certainly I retract that statement then, everybody, about not showing up in the clutch.
Maybe you just see it where it's like he just doesn't show up in the regular. In the regular situations with nobody on trying to get on base, he is nowhere to be found.
Yeah. I mean, and ultimately, that is a great statistic, and I wasn't actually aware of that. So I'm happy to hear that that's at least something, but that really doesn't change my opinion about him as a hitter overall. I mean, we know that there's a lot of holes in his game, and that's just, it's something that he's got to work on because he is going to be a bat in the lineup every single day, and ultimately being one of our quote-unquote power lefties, we want to be able to move him up in the lineup. So
see, here's the thing. I've kind of accepted who he is as a hitter, and that he's not ever going to be that power slugging lefty that's going to drive in runs and kind of protect the elites in the top part of the order. I think I've always said it this way for the last few months. You know what? Varsho is a great hitter in the 9 or 8 spot. With the defense, great. I'll take that. It kind of reminds me of a different player, Ryan Goins in 2015 when he would bat 9th. I'm so okay with that. Kevin Pillar also batting 8th. Martin batting 7th. Look, those were our defensive studs. Up the middle, literally catcher, second base, and center field. I'm cool with the up the middle guys playing in that, down part of the order if they're going to give me solid defense when you've got a top 6 that we had in 2015 that slugged a ton of home runs and hit for high averages. I'm cool with that, but we don't have that right now, and Dalton Varsho is batting 2nd for most of the year at the end. That's not so cool. We got to do a lot of work this offseason to make that reality a lot better.
I mean, I do hear you there. I think it's just when you consider the amount of capital that's been put into Dalton Varsho to bring him to this team, that's where it falls off for me, right? Because you look at somebody like a Springer and you look at somebody like like a Bassett or whatnot. I mean, we're paying those guys over $20 million, right? And that's the investment there, and that's why we get on Springer, where it's you're getting paid. You're the highest paid player on the Toronto Blue Jays, right? So it's the fact that you are not putting up, offensively speaking, is not good enough. And I feel the same way about Dalton Varsho, but it's not money. It's the amount of assets that we're giving up to get you, right? We're looking at our catching situation right now, and it's the pits. And,
Right.
it didn't need to be that way because over there in Arizona, Gabriel Moreno is actually doing very solid.
Very
He
solid.
would be the #1 guy over here in Toronto. And walking into next season, we wouldn't have any issues with the catching situation. And similarly speaking, I know that we may or may not have extended him, but Lourdes Gurriel Jr. doing exactly what he needs to do over there in Arizona as well. So I just look at the investment that was put into acquire you here. The WAR is good. The defense is incredible. The bat needs to get a lot better if this team, I think, is going to be successful in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, that's the scary reality. If you're banking on Dalton Varsho to be successful, whoa, we are in bad shape. We're in bad shape.
I mean, you fuck, dude. I think anyone could have told you that we're in bad shape, right? I do wonder, when it does come time, because he's got next year, and then correct me if I'm wrong, is he a free agent after that following season?
He'll be a free agent in 2027.
So he's got 2 more years remaining. I mean, I think that there's still a lot of time to change opinions and stuff, but where he's at right now, do you look at extending Dalton Varsho? Do you think that this is part of the future of this team?
No.
You know?
No, I think he's an experiment, and we all knew the experiment. It's the defensive experiment that Ross Atkins threw out there, and it failed. So we got to live with 2 more years of Dalton Varsho making great plays. We're gonna love it. We're gonna love his, his personality in the clubhouse. We're gonna love his effort he puts every single day that everyone talks about in the Blue Jays clubhouse. But it's time to move on. He'll be 30 years old at that point. You're a center fielder. You play the game hard. How much longer is your body going to last?
Sure.
Is another concern for me. He's already starting to get injuries with his shoulder. That's starting to give out. And that was on a play in the outfield. So I'm going to, let's monitor the next 2 years, especially if he deals with more injuries. Yeah, that's off the table for me.
Yeah,
that's scary.
Again, still, it's probably too early to even speculate on that, just because, again, we don't know what he's going to do or how he's going to perform. If he suddenly, starts popping off at the bat, then it's a completely different story. And ultimately, the situation of the team will dictate, I think, a lot of my feelings. If we do have, by that point, miraculously, like you've been suggesting, 6 really solid hitters at that top of the lineup, then you know what? Getting Dalton Varsho for an additional year or 2 to have the luxury of that incredible defense, kind of similarly to what we did with Kevin Kiermaier in the last few years. Well, now that becomes that luxury piece. But if you don't, then, you probably walk away.
Yeah, I can't agree more. So lots of Dalton Varsho news to come. Whether that shoulder is going to be good or not, we'll see probably in spring training. We literally won't hear about this guy for a long time.
It's going to be a while, man. He's going to have his work cut out for him. Let's move on and talk about Will Wagner. This was a blow to see that he was done. He was cooked for the season because he was doing really well with the Toronto Blue Jays in the limited amount of time that he had with us, finishing this season with a .305 batting average, the OPS plus of 124 across the board. You got to be pleased with this, considering this guy is 26 years old, one of our trade acquisitions here, involved in the Yusei Kikuchi deal. So I'm very happy with what we saw from Will Wagner. It's just really shitty that we couldn't see him finish off the season like that.
Yeah, and best case scenario, he finishes with 105 at-bats total. He's at 82 right now. So, either way you put it, first of all, I want him to get healthy. Hope he gets healthy for next season. It's just an knee inflammation. I think they just shut him down for the rest of the year. They kind of saw what they needed to see out of Willie Wags, and we get some other guys some opportunities. So they shut him down. But either way you put it, the sample size is still so small, and my opinion really doesn't change whether he's here for the next 2 weeks or not. He's another guy that's going to go into spring training auditioning for a job. And depending on what the Blue Jays do this free agency or with the trades, there might be limited jobs available. So he's got to show up in his best shape, ready to go for spring training. I think he's got a great advantage. Hell yeah. A guy with a high batting average and a decent OPS, who could play second or first. Wow, I didn't even realize he played first. If I've been away from the Jays that long, apparently he's a first baseman. I didn't see that. But a guy who can play in the infield, there's a lot of opportunities that could be available, but there's a lot of guys that are just clouding in that kind of area. So we got to see what happens this offseason. Someone also brought up that, Willie Wagner could be a great trade piece. He's got hot, and then he's not a highly rated prospect. Do you consider maybe shipping him off? Because there's so much depth in that middle infield. Hell, second first baseman, that's Vladimir Horwitz, So it's do you consider trading him off, maybe flipping for some bullpen? Might not be a bad idea. It might hurt a little bit, but
definitely not a bad idea, right? at the time, last year, people were kind of suggesting the same thing with David Schneider. And at the time, it was like, oh, no, we can't do that. Like, this is the next fucking Babe Ruth. And then, it all came back to earth, right?
Right.
So I do think that we got to temper expectations here and just understand that we're talking about 82 at-bats here, like, a month type thing. Like, not even, of Will Wagner playing good baseball. And because he's not a highly touted prospect, it's like, will this continue? Probably not. If you can get somebody to bite on him and to buy high on what they just saw, then be my guest and go out and get a bullpen piece, because ultimately we do need that more. I look at that middle infield, and it's already been kind of clogged up, and that's without Bichette manning the shortstop position.
Yeah.
When he comes back, and if he is on this team, and like locking him in at the shortstop, well, what does that mean for the Ernie Clements and the Leo Jimenezes and, the Willie Wagners and the Addison
Horwitz,
Barshers, right? Like, you're talking about all these different players who are kind of in that same tier of, like, we like you, but we still don't know about you, like, fully, and are we really ready to commit to Ernie Clement as being the locked-in third baseman? He has been incredible defensively, but, like, are we willing to do that? These are the tough questions that the Toronto Blue Jays front office is going to have to deal with this offseason, right? And you are going to need to make some tough choices regarding the opening day roster about whether or not Willie Wagner is going to be there or not. Now, the good thing about that is that if he's not there, well, if somebody gets hurt, now you can bring him up. We at least know that you can bring him up, and we've seen it a little bit before to go, okay, well, you know what? If this guy isn't performing well, then there's Willie Wagner. Up in May, we're okay.
Yeah. I'm kind of on that train where, what do we do? Split playing time and have like inconsistent at bats? I'd rather get a guy than we commit to him and see if it works. Given the full reps out there, whether it be second or third base. Also, Sophie in here saying trade Horwitz. Wagner on the opening day roster.
You know what?
That's interesting.
It's a really interesting suggestion, right? Because it's trading Spencer Horwitz feels the same way to me how I felt about the whole trading Babe Schneider last year, right? When people brought that up, I was like, oh my God, this is blasphemous. You can't possibly be thinking about that. But, using the same logic, right? It's like, it's not a super highly touted prospect. He has been amazing. Is somebody willing to buy high on him? And then, what would you actively be willing to ship him off for? Like, I'm personally always of the mindset that anyone is available for trade. It all just depends on, what the return would be. I think that if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, Spencer Horwitz is something that you probably aren't actively shopping around, but if somebody's on the phone and calling about him, I would pick up and I would listen and I would be serious about hearing what they have to say.
Yeah, because look at his last 28 days. I actually made a little post about this earlier today. Like, he's been better than Vladdy in the last month of baseball.
Yeah,
he's been phenomenal. That's the one difference I will say about him and Davis Schneider, where Davis was like, I'm hot for a month. And then in September, he was ice cold.
Yeah.
If you remember, like his numbers looked oddly similar to what he's been doing most of this season. And Horwitz, on the other hand, was red hot, then got ice cold, then got red hot. So for me, he made that adjustment where, like, very quickly too. It was only like 2 weeks, and he made that adjustment.
Yeah.
So for me, that's the difference in the player for me. But again, I'm not going to disagree with you. I think you should still listen, because you do have a bunch of a surplus of middle infielders and third basemen. So Horwitz could be a guy on the move, but I really think this is the one guy that I have the most confidence in actually being an MLB player.
Ultimately, I would tend to agree with you on that one as well, right? Just like when you look at the numbers, they're great. Across the board, they are really, really good. Other than the fucking speed, he's got he's got literally negative speed.
Yeah.
The guy can't run to save his life. But the bat has been really, really good. So, yeah, I am absolutely still on the Horwitz train, and I hope that he's with the team next year. However, I do, again, fully understand where Sophie's coming from and just thinking, you got a guy that wasn't expected to be this good. And now he's at, and that's the thing. Now he's kind of at that point where I think people would be willing to pay a little bit more than they should for him. Are you willing to ship him off for that? I don't know. The one thing I will ask you, though, right before we leave this conversation is, do you expect Spencer Horwitz to have a 275 batting average and an 824 OPS next year for a full season? I don't know.
I think it's actually not too far off. Seriously, I mean, we've seen it happen in AAA for the last 2 seasons. You know, he's been that good, a consistent level. And then now we're seeing it at the big league level. Granted, smaller sample size, but still enough of a sample size where I could see the progression in the battles, you know, with the it's all about the adjustments for me. So for me, I actually wouldn't be too far off. Like my season-long prediction, I think it's going to be pretty accurate. Depends on how he finishes, I guess, and what happens this offseason. But I could see him finishing around that 270, 280 batting average with a high on base, with that great approach, and a low slugging. I'm not expecting him to be a slugger. Maybe a 750 to the 800, somewhere in there. I'm seriously on that train.
Yeah, I mean, and that would be a very solid baseball player, right? If you can turn into that, 770 OPS guy and just be in the middle of the lineup. Right now, he is being forced into some spots that we probably don't want him to be in an ideal world. Like, I do think that Spencer Horwitz would make for a great 6-hitter, or anything like that. That becomes now a very nice luxury, and you're very happy with that. That's not where the Toronto Blue Jays are at today.
No, they're not. Where they're at, though, is, like we said, dealing with a lot of injuries and a lot of moving parts here in the last 2 weeks of the season, including they made another call-up to replace Bo Bichette after that injury. They called up the number 6 ranked prospect. We just got him this trade deadline from Seattle, Jonathan Clase. And, I mean, everyone's super excited. I saw someone already kind of comment being like, excited to see what Clase does for the Blue Jays. Outfielder, highly rated prospect. However, the word around the Blue Jays camp is that Clase still needs to work on some things. And I think that this move was, we didn't expect this injury from Bo Bichette. We got to make a move somewhere. Why don't we give our guy that we just traded for a taste of what it's like at the Blue Jays clubhouse? Because if you look at what he's done so far for AAA Buffalo, it's not super exciting. Low batting average, a low on-base percentage, a low slugging with an OPS of 651. And the word around the camp is he needs to work on his contact more. He's got to work at his plate discipline. So basically anything that makes a player a good baseball player, he's got to work on it some more. So for me, it'll be fun to see him in some Blue Jays blue, but I am not expecting a whole lot from Clase right now.
No, absolutely not, man. And I think that this just goes to show what I've been saying now for a couple weeks, that these are being treated like spring training games.
Right.
I would imagine that when they gave Jonathan Clase the call-up, they told him, don't worry, man. This is
have fun.
Yeah, exactly. Seriously, there is negative pressure, right? There's less than any pressure at all.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably less people watching these games now than actual spring training. Seriously. Because at least in spring training, you got the hype for the season and people kind of want to tune in and everything. That you've seen the stands. There's nobody in them right now. There's when we go live, there's very few people tuning into our live.
We had more people on our live streams during spring training. Easily.
Exactly, right? So I would go so far to say that there's literally less people watching these games than they will be in March, right? So for Jonathan Clase, it really is just come up, get a taste, look at how they're throwing, see how quick it is, see the movement, right? See how they attack you early on. You'll get 9 games of sample size to see what those guys are thinking about you. Do they attack you with a fastball? Do they attack you? What are they going to do to you? And at least then you can think about that in the offseason. Okay, well, this is what I was getting. This is what they were doing to me, and you can work on that.
Yeah, I mean, he might not even get 9 games, to be honest. He might even...
Well, yeah, you're right. He probably won't start all 9. Yeah.
He might not even, right? He might get 8 at-bats, and that's cool for him. I think the real important thing is getting him acclimated to the staff, to the clubhouse, everything like that, right? Obviously he was over in Seattle at the major league level, but getting him acclimated to the Toronto Blue Jays version of a big league clubhouse and getting himself familiar, because that can also be valuable as well. So that's it. That's all I'm excited for. Don't expect him to do anything, guys.
100%. Just watch for him, see how he looks, and see what the taste is going to be. We got Leah in here saying, I guess I'm a loser still watching. Well, we can all be losers together, folks.
We're going live tonight, man.
This is what it is. We're all losers together, and we're going to be live for this evening's game, guys. So if you want to come in and have a loser crew to watch along with, then Blue Jays Today is the spot. Final kind of injury / call-up / whatever you want to call this update. Dylan Tate, new bullpen arm. we've had some rough guys in that bullpen this season. The last live stream that we were on, this is sad, I do this for a living, I couldn't name every single bullpen guy that we have right now. Tommy Nance escaped me. I literally could not remember Tommy Nance to save my life. Well, Dylan Tate's a new guy in here right now, and at the very least, this guy may, I want to say may, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying absolute, just may have a little bit of upside.
Yeah, just a little bit, guys. I mean, he came up with the Baltimore Orioles. He was actually drafted in the first round, 4th overall in 2015. Okay, that's something there, but obviously it's been a long road. He's 30 years old now. But he was up with the Baltimore Orioles. He had a decent career. There were some very good years for Dylan Tate, especially in 2022. We had a 3.05 ERA and a WHIP under 1. I remember Dylan Tate effing us up in 2022 when the Baltimore Orioles were starting to emerge as a kind of sneaky candidate for a contending team. And then he gets injured all 2023. And then this year, he only pitched 29 games, 33 innings, and it was, not that great, but honestly better than a ton of Blue Jays pitchers we've seen this year. He had a 4.59 ERA for Baltimore. Then they just cut him, and we picked him up. And I think that was a good pickup because, as we know, bullpen pieces go through ups and downs all season long. Hell, I mean, they had Craig Kimbrell on their team. This guy was better than Craig Kimbrell, for the entire season. So
somebody's in the chat right now saying pick up Kimbrell can't be much worse than what we got.
Literally, like to my point, he's better than Kimbrell. He had a better season than Kimbrell this season. So for me, we still have him in 2025. He'll be a free agent in 2026, but I'm not gonna glaze him and gas him up and gaslight you guys saying this guy's gonna be the next best thing. I think this is could be a eventual. I make a weak comparison to like a Jay Jackson, where one of those guys you picked up in a minor league contract, or in this situation, you pick him up off the waivers, you add him to your team one season, maybe you get a little bit of a magic in a bottle, and he has a good season next year. You never know. Yeah. But it's nice to see him with the team.
I also don't think he's like guaranteed locked in for a role next year either, right? Like we'll get him for like, I don't know, 2-3 games in this final little stretch just to see what he's got. If he completely blows it, bye, Dylan Tate. That's probably the end of you. Right. But, he'll be fighting for a job in spring training. It's also going to depend a lot on, like, who we bring in this offseason, right? Like, if they attack the bullpen heavy and, like, now it's like, a surplus, then maybe, you don't see him. Whereas, alternatively, if we're not getting them, the guys that we're looking for, we're missing out on some of the free agents, we don't make any smart trades for some bullpen, then Dylan Tate might find himself in a role right now. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's not great, but it sure as hell is better than Zach Pop.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's so many effing holes with this team that Dylan Tate actually looks like a good option.
Kind of sad.
It's kind of sad, but like maybe he could have a bounce back year, give you a 3 ERA at the back of your bullpen, like Jay Jackson did with the Blue Jays last year, and feel good about it because Nick made a little social media post about this. Negative 2.8 WAR. We actually got back 0.2 WAR, guys. Oh my God! But we're still so dead last in the WAR. This is reliever ERA. Reliever stats, by the way, guys. So anything's better than nothing.
Yeah, this is for the bullpen across MLB, and as you can see, we are the only team where across our bullpen we have a negative WAR. So when you throw that bullpen out, you are going to lose more games than you win, assuming you put an alternative in. Like, they're actually that bad. And to be 3 points of WAR removed from the Colorado Rockies and the only team that's negative, it's historically bad. It's historically bad.
Super bad. So again, another storyline to follow this offseason, guys. We've got a crap ton of work to do, but maybe Dylan Tate could be something.
Yeah, we'll see, man. Ross Atkins is going to have to cook with the bullpen. Like, that really is, like, in my opinion, other than the Guerrero extension, because that's planning for the future and stuff, but other than that, like, if you have any hope of being competitive next year, I want to see 3 or 4 or 5 different arms coming in here who could potentially pitch an inning or two,
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys, let's move on. Let's talk about one more thing before we predict this upcoming series. Let's give a big acknowledgement here, guys, to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hitting his 30th home run yesterday. 2 home run game. He got overshadowed by Ohtani. No one's talking about Vladdy anymore. But a 2 home run game, his 30th of the season. He is only 25 years old, and he's had 3 30 home run seasons. When you really think about it that way, my God, we are blessed to have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. on this team. And I was checking I wish I still had it actually right here, but I was checking the Blue Jays overall WAR leaders of all time. Vladdy's up there, guys. I think he's like 15th, I want to say, of all time. So this guy, again, if he's extended in a Blue Jay for the rest of his life, he could be number one when it's all said and done.
He could certainly enter into that, like top 5, top 3 for sure, right? Because that's, to be in the top of the WAR, you got to have the longevity and, of course, the talent as well. This season, phenomenal year from Vlad, finishing right around that over 6 WAR, 951 OPS. We've kind of stopped talking about it, but with 9 games left, he is within 10 points of Bobby Witt Jr. for the batting average title, right? I think Bobby Witt, the last time I looked, was at 331. So if he really cools off and Guerrero keeps up with these 2 3-hit games, obviously it would take a lot, but there is actually a chance right there. Regardless, though, like, even if he finishes second, it's like this is still an incredible year from Guerrero, and we've gotten on him a bunch in just the history of this channel, and I think everyone has, right? Like, because when you don't see him performing like this, it's easy to go to the flip side of things where, like, this is a bust and whatever, this isn't the guy that we promised, just because the expectations have always been so high. This was the season that we needed to see. At the end of the day, 3 30-bomb years before age 26, really good. That's a $300 to $350 million player, in my opinion, and we've got to make it so this offseason.
Yeah, JP, just I want to quickly answer that, and you just kind of did there, Nick. What
I did unknowingly. I didn't even see that.
Yeah, what kind of extension do you see Vlad getting? It is going to be between, I think it's over Rafael Devers' contract, which is, I think, 313. So I could see like a 313 to 350.
Yeah.
And it's 10 years at least. If they add on any more years, that obviously that number is going to go up.
Yeah. I think I think Bryce Harper gets paid something like 330 or 340
for like 14 years or something like that.
Yeah, like maybe that number, but potentially a couple less years type thing. Like I would imagine that if you're going to get Guerrero, because you'll sign him when he's 26, I think the ideal length would be till he's like 38.
12
years.
Would,
so a 12-year deal, and then it's like you have him for his entire career type thing, and whether that's a 330 or a 340, that kind of feels like in the range of like, okay, like you got good value, we got good value, we're happy, we're all happy with this,
Yeah, exactly. Again, another conversation that we're going to be diving into all off season. My goodness. I can't wait.
Yeah, no, seriously. The one thing I do hope that, like, as much as, I want him to be here forever and everything like that, I really hope we don't, like, completely overpay, because I know that he is coming off of an incredible year. Like, I think if we start getting to the 400 mil, I'm going to be like...
See, if we get to the 400 mil and it's like 13, 14 years, because that makes sense, right? I was just thinking in my brain, like, if his average annual value is like, what, like $35 million? So I was thinking 10 years, 350. I was like, okay, I'd do that. But if you add it on 12, now it's over 400.
Like I hear what you're saying, but it's still like that. Like again, like there's only been like you'd be what, the second, third? Did Trout get over 400?
Trout got over 400.
Yeah, I think Trout got just over 400. So you'd be the, assuming Juan Soto also gets over 400, the fourth player to get over 400. Like that's
let's go.
It just seems like a little,
I know,
pricey, but
I know, but he's so young, so many bombs.
Yeah, we'll see what the Toronto Blue Jays can cook up for us, everybody. If we win a World Series in the period of time that we have him extended, I will not give a fuck when he's batting 100 at 40 years old.
I won't care, guys. All right, let's predict this upcoming series. We are finishing off our road trip, the last road trip of the year, and it's at the Trop. Wow, imagine that. We start the year at the Trop, we end the year at the Trop.
I hate the Trop.
And it's a very different Blue Jays team from the last time that we were here. We've got Jose Barrios on the bump going up against Tyler Alexander that almost threw a no-hitter against the Blue Jays way back when in the middle of the summer.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. That was brutal.
However, Tyler Alexander has not been that good as of late, and I think we actually got to him last time when we were facing him. After we faced him like 3 times this year. This is our 3rd time. So we actually got to him the 2nd time. But we got Jose Barrios. He's struggling as well. He's got a 5.58 ERA. I think his last 7's even higher than that. So where do you think What do you think the game's going to be like tonight?
I mean, I think that this one is actually going to be a lot closer than the numbers predict, because I think just on the surface level, you look at these two pitchers and you go, Toronto Blue Jays win all the time, right? And, Barrios 16-9, really, really good recently. Tyler Alexander, not as good. This is a Blue Jays win. However, historically speaking, we suck at the Trop. We are so bad in Tropicana Field.
2-2 this year.
Okay. Well, that is actually significantly better than what we've done in history. So for that reason alone, I think this game is going to be a lot closer. I will give the Toronto Blue Jays the slight edge here, though, just because Barrios has been cooking with gas. But yeah, I could also see this one going the other way.
Yeah, I'm going to also go with a W for Jose Barrios. And as well, I got a little bet coming up for this one. So let's give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this show.
Whoa! Time for your daily Betway breather. A quick reminder that the best place to bet is on Betway. Must be 19 years of age or older to play. In collaboration with iGaming Ontario, please bet responsibly. Now, back to the content.
Shout out to Betway, everybody, for being absolutely phenomenal. What do we have going on tonight?
Sophie says Barrios is due for a bad outing. I'm going to disagree, Sophie. He's cooking with gasoline, and he's, yes, on the road at the Trop, but the Tampa Bay Rays offense is poopy, and they haven't been that good lately. So I'm going to say, I think it was 6 of his last 8 or 9 starts. He's gone 7 innings, so he's got to get into the 7th inning and record one more out. It's a big boost, 2.37, but the way he's been pitching, I kind of like it, and against a poopy offense, I'm going for that bet.
That is quite a lot of cooking right there.
That's cooking.
We're looking at 7.1 innings pitched for Jose Barrios. That should, you imagine, would get the W there over the Tampa Bay Rays. So he's gonna have to go long.
Yeah, look at that, right? 7 innings, 6 innings, 6, 7, 7, 7, 7. It's like he's been doing it. Can he do it one more time? I hope so.
Yeah, we'll see, everybody. Moving on to game number 2. We're calling a win in that first one. This one, though, a lot tighter. You got Yariel Rodriguez up against Bradley. Rodriguez, as we know, has just been up and down all year long. I think, across the board, I said this, I think, in the last Blue Jays Today show, that it's like, I'm still pleased with what we saw from Yariel Rodriguez, all things considered, being new to the MLB, not pitching last year, whatever. That being said, though, it's not like you can actively rely on this guy for a good outing every time.
No, and also you got to consider that when you have a Yariel Rodriguez game, you're also having a bullpen game. And for me, paired up with Bradley, and I think Bradley's actually been kind of struggling. It doesn't really matter for me. Yeah, he's been struggling really bad. It's basically Blue Jays bullpen, which we all saw was the worst in baseball, versus Bradley. I don't care how bad any starting pitcher is struggling. And actually, the Tampa Bay Rays bullpen has been phenomenal in the last 15 days.
That's the thing, and they do typically, they're just good at that.
They're good at that.
They know their bullpens.
Yes, they do. So in that case, I am going to go with the Tampa Bay Rays getting a W in this one.
Yeah, I'm also going to ride with that one as well, man. I mean, again, these are two bad baseball teams. I don't see anyone sweeping in this one. No. Final game on Sunday. Now, Sophie said that we're doing a bullpen game on Sunday, apparently.
Yeah.
So it's going like Yariel Rodriguez and half a bullpen day to then a full bullpen day. That ain't good.
Yeah, I mean, they had Chris Bassett lined up to start this one. I don't know. I haven't heard anything. Maybe, Sophie, you've heard something. But if that is the case, whether it's Bassett or it's a bullpen, doesn't matter. Bass is on fire right now. Right. He's part of the reason why they're doing so good right now. This is going to be this is going to be a shutout game. We're going to lose this one, and we're going to lose the series.
Well,
1-2.
I'll tell you what, man. I do think it matters a little bit, because at least with Chris Bassett, I feel like we have a shot. Like, I legitimately think that if it is a full bullpen day, as is being suggested right now, like it's fully done. There's no hope at all. It doesn't matter who you're playing. So assuming that it will be the bullpen day as it's currently looking like it's going to be, and this bullpen is probably going to be tired after having to do the Yariel Rodriguez start a day prior.
Bad. It's going to be bad.
11-1.
Yeah, I'm saying we're going to shut out 11-0.
Right.
11-0. It's going to be that bad.
It might be an ugly one, guys. So, that's going to be the end of the road trip. And then we are coming back to the Rogers Center for the final 6 games of the season. Let us know in the comments down below. Are you guys going to any of those games? Should we go to any of those games to finish things off? Let us know down below. Hit that like, smash the subscribe button, and comment your thoughts about everything that we talked about today, the future of Bichette, what it's looking like with Willie Wagner. I saw somebody being like, why are we even talking about trading Spencer Horwitz? Let us know about that down below.
Yeah, why not? Let's talk about everything, shall we? Including Juan Soto, everybody. We're not going to have... That won't be the last conversation that we have about Juan Soto earlier this week. We're going to have so many more. I can't wait for the offseason, guys. Only one more week. Let's go get it, guys. Thank you so much for watching.
And as always,
go Jays, go!